Joining us now is the Illinois Policy Institute's Vice President for Policy, Adam Schuster, who's done a study of the cannabis business here. You say some things have gone wrong.
Yeah, Illinois essentially has overtaxed and overregulated its legal marijuana market to the extent that it's undermining some of the goals of proponents prior to legalization. Those two main goals being to raise revenue, and we're falling hundreds of millions of dollars short, and to end black market sales to reduce the crime associated with that. And by strictly limiting the number of licenses and putting in place a system of high and complex taxes, we've undermined both those goals.
Now, I will say the PRITZKER administration says that they've been hamstrung by the courts. There have been multiple lawsuits filed, and they say they think some of this will iron itself out once they're allowed to issue several hundred more licenses. There's somewhere between 100 and 200 now. The eventual goal is 500.
So I think the lawsuits are actually a symptom of the problem, which is that we have a very restrictive and limited licensing regime that caps the number of licenses to the extent that Illinois has the lowest number of marijuana licenses per capita of any state that has legal marijuana. And the reason these lawsuits exist is because that process, far from helping social equity applicants, freezes many of them out of the market. And, you know, it allowed medical marijuana businesses to get the first bite at the apple, to apply for licenses first, which helped these large companies sort of gobble up the market before anybody else could even get into it.
Well, I mean, and it's no secret that for those who use cannabis, it's no secret that the weed guy who used to be out there on the corner or just a phone call away before it was legalized on January 1st, 2020, in many cases, the weed guy is still in business.
I think the weed guy may be seeing his business increase, because what happens when you legalize a product is that you reduce the consequences associated with use and possession. But if you limit the supply so strictly as Illinois is doing, and you overtax the product, you also freeze people out based on affordability from being able to purchase it legally. So you could actually be driving new customers to the black market. And there's actually peer-reviewed research that shows higher tax rates on cannabis are associated with a larger black market. So if Illinois wants to, live up to the goals of legalization, including helping social equity applicants, reducing black market sales and raising revenue, we should lower and simplify the taxes and uncap the number of licenses.
Now, in some litigation that was filed recently, there's an allegation that a pound of branded cannabis product that costs $4,000 here in Illinois sells out in California for $300. Now, that, dare I say it, blows my mind.
Well, that's what you get when you strictly limit the supply and you drive up the tax, or you drive up the base cost of the product with this complicated tax system, because we're also one of just 3 states that applies a tax rate both at the wholesale level and at the point of sale on cannabis. So wholesale taxes tend to be passed on to the consumer. And so when you tax the business-to-business transactions, it drives up the base cost of the marijuana. And in fact, the study that I did, much like the lawsuit is alleging, found that the average price per ounce of marijuana in Illinois is higher than in any other state with legal marijuana. And again, what that does when the price is so high is it drives people to the black market.
Yeah, and so that's why the weed guy here in Chicago and in the suburbs is still in business and maybe even doing better than he was before.
It's quite possible.
So listen, in addition to the goals that you cited for this legislation, there was another goal, as you well know, in Springfield, of the General Assembly and Governor Pritzker, and that was this social equity goal. The idea was that we had, while we were selling alcohol and and beer, wine, liquor, things that were destroying lives, we were allowing the legal sale of that, but we were putting people in prison for long terms if they were selling cannabis products. The idea was to give the opportunity to people who'd been hurt by that idiotic war on drugs to get a piece of the pie here.
Right. And I think that if you really wanted to help social equity applicants, you would not cap the number of licenses, because the people who are well connected, who are politically connected, the people who already have the capital at hand are going to gobble up the licenses first if there's a limited amount of them. And that's why, this lawsuit is alleging there's basically a Chicago cartel that has done that they've built an oligopoly in the marijuana market. So I don't think that, this restrictive licensing regime actually serves the interests of social equity applicants. I think that helping them get access to capital through loans makes a lot more sense. The goals here were to raise revenue and to freeze the black market. And, legalization can be a net benefit for the state, and it can achieve both of those goals, but you have to do it the right way. And if you compare the amount of revenue that other states, specifically Colorado or Washington, are raising compared to the size of their population and their economy, Illinois is missing out on about $600 million in potential revenue because we're limiting the market the way we are.
And that's $600 million we need desperately.
That's absolutely true.
Adam Schuster from the Illinois Policy Institute, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
We'll be right back after a quick break.